Captain Rylan adjusted the controls of the starship Horizon, his eyes scanning the barren horizon of the planet below. The world known in galactic charts as Lyrath 9 had once been a thriving outpost for human colonists. Now it was silent, a gray wasteland marked by twisted metal and crumbling buildings. The communications array had gone dead weeks ago, and repeated attempts to reach the settlement had failed. Something had gone wrong here, and Rylan's mission was simple: investigate, report, and ensure no survivors had been left behind. The landing was rough. Lyrath 9's atmosphere was thin and dusty, and the horizon shuddered as its thrusters dug into the hard soil. Rylan could feel every vibration through his boots, a constant reminder that this was no ordinary assignment. As the engines powered down, a strange stillness seemed to settle over the area. He stepped onto the ground, his boots sinking slightly into gray dust. "Keep your eyes open," Rylan told his small crew. There were 4 of them, each trained for exploration, but none had experienced something like this. "Something's off here. Listen for anything unusual." The crew spread out carefully, scanning the ruins with their sensors and flashlights. Broken buildings leaned at impossible angles. Walls cracked and warped as if a great force had struck them. There were scorch marks, but no signs of battle or human activity. Just silence. Rylan moved cautiously, his instincts alert. He passed through what looked like a former marketplace, broken tables and scattered containers lying abandoned. Then he heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible sound. It was a whimper. Rylan froze. "Did anyone else hear that?" he whispered into his comm. The crew shook their heads, all tense. The sound came again, faint but unmistakable, coming from a collapsed building nearby. Without waiting, Rylan moved closer, his pulse quickening. Inside the ruin, he saw it. A small creature no taller than a human child curled in the shadows. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its eyes were enormous, reflecting the light of Rylan's flashlight. The alien child shivered, clearly frightened, its thin limbs trembling. Rylan knelt down slowly, careful not to scare it further. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The child flinched but did not run. Its eyes were wide and intelligent, observing Rylan with a mixture of fear and curiosity. He noticed faint markings on its skin, patterns that glowed faintly when it breathed. The sight was mesmerizing and strange, unlike anything Rylan had ever seen. Suddenly, a low growl echoed from the shadows behind the child. Rylan's eyes darted around. A pack of Lyrathian predators, small but vicious, emerged, their bodies covered in bristling scales, eyes glowing faintly red in the darkness. They hissed and circled, clearly ready to attack. Rylan reacted immediately. He pulled his pulse blaster from its holster, firing precise shots that caused the creatures to recoil but not flee. He realized they were defending something, likely the child. The little being trembled more violently, making soft noises of distress. "Get back!" Rylan shouted, keeping his weapon steady. The predators lunged, claws scraping the concrete floor. Rylan fired again, this time hitting one squarely in the chest. It yelped and fell back. He grabbed the child, holding it close, shielding it with his body as the remaining creatures hesitated. "You're safe now," Rylan whispered to the child, though the word was meaningless to it. His calm tone seemed to matter more than the words themselves. Carefully, he lifted the child and backed toward the exit, keeping his weapon aimed at the remaining predators. Within moments, they slinked back into the shadows, as if deciding this fight was not worth the risk. Rylan exhaled, his muscles tense but relieved. The child clung to him, its small hands gripping his uniform, head resting against his chest. He felt an unexpected surge of responsibility, a protective instinct he hadn't anticipated. "All right, team," Rylan called into his comm. "Bring the transport pods. We're taking this one with us." His crew arrived quickly, expressions a mixture of awe and uncertainty. They had heard the rumors about alien intelligence, but seeing a being so young and capable of evoking such instinctive care was different. No one spoke at first. They simply moved to secure the area and prepare for liftoff. As the horizon ascended from Lyrath 9, Rylan studied the child. It didn't speak in human language, but its gestures were deliberate. It pointed toward the planet below, then toward the stars. Rylan realized it was curious about the outside world. Intelligent curiosity, not fear. "Looks like we have company," said Lieutenant Mara, pointing to the sensors. Multiple signals were tracking their departure. Alien craft, moving fast but not aggressive. Rylan frowned. Whoever or whatever was monitoring the child knew it had been found. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked at the child again, who now stared at the view screen, fascinated by the planets and stars passing by. Something about its wonder reminded him of the first humans who had looked at space with wide eyes and endless questions. Rylan knew then that protecting this child would not be simple. Whoever or whatever it belonged to, they would come for it. And the child? Well, the child had already chosen him as its shield, trusting him in ways no one else could understand. Over the next few days, the child began to adjust to life aboard the Horizon. It moved carefully, mimicking human gestures and exploring the ship with quiet fascination. Sensors recorded unusual neural activity whenever it touched controls or equipment. Rylan realized that the child might have abilities far beyond ordinary species intelligence. "Captain," Mara said one evening, "I've run the scans. Its biosigns are stable, but the energy readings, they're unusual. I've never seen anything like this in human or alien life forms." Rylan nodded, staring at the child, who now sat quietly in a corner, tracing patterns on the floor with its fingers. "It's special," he said softly. "More than we imagined. And if anyone comes for it, they'll have to deal with all of us first." That night, Rylan sat near the child as it slept on a makeshift cot. He watched over it, feeling an unfamiliar sense of guardianship. He didn't know its origins, its destiny, or even what species it truly belonged to. But one thing was certain: he could not abandon it. Not now, not ever. Somewhere across the galaxy, unseen by human eyes, a pair of glowing eyes watched the horizon from afar. The child was not simply lost or abandoned. It was being sought, and not by ordinary pursuers. Someone or something was coming, and they would not take no for an answer. Rylan was unaware of the danger approaching, yet he felt a quiet certainty. The universe was about to change, and he, a simple human captain, had just stepped into the center of a story much larger than himself. The child stirred in its sleep, making soft sounds that Rylan instinctively understood as comfort. He placed a hand gently on its back. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I've got you." And in that simple act, a bond was sealed, one that would test courage, loyalty, and the true meaning of humanity in the days to come. The Horizon cruised through the endless darkness of space, its lights casting a soft glow across the metal interior. Captain Rylan stood at the observation window, watching distant stars drift past, but his mind was not on navigation. It was on the child. The alien child had grown more comfortable aboard the ship. It no longer flinched at the crew's movements or the sounds of machinery. Instead, it explored the corridors with quiet curiosity, occasionally touching control panels and making patterns on the screens with its small hands. Rylan often caught himself staring, amazed at how quickly the child seemed to learn. Lieutenant Mara approached him, her expression thoughtful. "Captain, I've been monitoring its interactions. The child doesn't understand our language fully, but it seems to recognize gestures, tone, and intention. It's learning faster than any human or alien species I've seen." Rylan nodded. "I noticed that too. It watches everything we do. And it doesn't just mimic. It seems to understand the purpose behind our actions." He sighed, resting his hand on the cold metal railing. "There's something remarkable about it. Something that makes me want to protect it no matter what." Mara gave him a small, understanding smile. "It's lucky to have you, Captain." Meanwhile, the child had discovered the crew's small hydroponic garden. Rows of green plants swayed slightly in the artificial light, and the child crouched beside them, touching the leaves with gentle curiosity. Its large eyes seemed to study the texture, the way the light reflected the movement of the water. Rylan watched silently, recognizing the child's fascination. "You like that, huh?" Rylan said softly. The child looked up, blinking slowly, and then returned its attention to the plants. There was something peaceful about this moment, a rare pause from the uncertainty that had filled the past days. Later, in the ship's common area, the crew gathered to discuss their next steps. The child sat quietly near Rylan, occasionally shifting to study their faces. The crew was divided. Some wanted to take the child directly to the nearest human settlement for protection, while others feared that moving it too quickly might attract unwanted attention. "We have no idea what this child is," one crew member said, his voice uneasy. "It's not just an alien life form, it's different. We should report it immediately." Rylan shook his head. Reporting it now could put it in danger. Whoever or whatever was looking for it could intercept the message. For now, we keep it safe. That's my priority. The child seemed to understand, leaning slightly against Ryland's side. It reached out and touched his arm, a soft gesture that spoke more than words ever could. Ryland felt a warmth in his chest, a sense of responsibility that went beyond duty. Over the next few days, the child's abilities became more apparent. It could sense dangers before they happened. Minor system malfunctions, incoming meteor fragments, even subtle shifts in the ship's trajectory. The crew began to notice the child's unusual sensitivity to its surroundings, and Mara recorded data with keen interest. "I've never seen anything like this," she told Ryland one afternoon. "It's as if it can anticipate events, understand patterns. Almost like it's calculating outcomes before they happen. That kind of awareness is extraordinary." Ryland nodded, keeping his gaze on the child, who was now experimenting with one of the ship's maintenance drones. It hovered in the air, guided by the child's delicate gestures. The drone responded smoothly, almost as if it were alive. "This child is more than just intelligent," Ryland murmured. "It's exceptional." Their bond deepened further when the child began to communicate intentionally. It had no spoken language humans could understand, but it used gestures, expressions, and simple symbols drawn on digital pads. Ryland spent hours each day trying to interpret these signals, learning slowly but steadily. One evening, as the horizon sailed past a glowing nebula, the child drew a simple shape on the pad, a circle with lines radiating outward. Ryland studied it carefully. "Are you asking about the stars?" he guessed. The child's eyes brightened and it nodded vigorously. "Yes," Ryland said softly. "I think you want to see more of the universe." He smiled. "We'll get there, little one. I promise." The crew watched these interactions in quiet awe. The child's presence had brought a sense of wonder to the ship. It reminded them of why humanity had ventured into space in the first place. The curiosity, the desire to explore, the hope of encountering the unknown. But not all aboard the Horizon were free from worry. The ship's sensors occasionally picked up faint signals, distant and fragmented, that seemed to track their path. The child's senses often reacted before the equipment did, becoming alert or agitated without clear reason. Ryland suspected that these signals were connected to whoever, or whatever, had been searching for the child. One night, as the ship drifted through a quiet stretch of space, the child awoke suddenly. It moved to Ryland's side, tugging at his sleeve. He knelt beside it. Its eyes were wide, and it pointed toward the ship's window, toward the darkness outside. Ryland felt a shiver run down his spine. "Someone's out there?" he asked softly. The child nodded, then pressed its tiny hand against his chest, as if reassuring him that it trusted him to protect it. Ryland's jaw tightened. He had already felt the weight of responsibility, but this moment made it heavier, sharper, and more urgent. Over the next few hours, the child demonstrated abilities that amazed and concerned the crew. When Ryland adjusted the ship's course near a dense asteroid field, the child seemed to anticipate each rock's movement, pointing towards safe gaps before the instruments could even register them. Mara checked the readings repeatedly. "It's like it knows the future," she said, her voice a mix of awe and worry. Ryland studied the child, realizing that this tiny being was far more than just an intelligent alien. It had instincts, skills, and perhaps even a destiny that humans could not yet comprehend. Protecting it would not just be about keeping it safe physically. It would be about understanding it, guiding it, and perhaps learning from it. The bond between them deepened in quiet ways. The child would mimic Ryland's gestures, try to repeat simple phrases, and respond to tones of voice. Ryland found himself teaching it small lessons, not with strict rules, but with patient demonstration. They communicated in ways that went beyond language, a shared understanding, a connection that transcended species, and through it all, the child seemed to trust him completely. It would only eat when he was nearby, only sleep when he was in the same room, and would always follow him when the crew moved about the ship. Ryland realized he had become more than a guardian. He had become a parent figure, a protector, and a friend. Yet despite the warmth of these days, Ryland never let his guard down. He knew the universe was vast and not all beings were friendly. The child's presence had already drawn attention, even if he did not yet know from whom. One afternoon, the ship's sensors picked up a brief signal, fast, faint, and distant. Ryland examined the readings carefully, It's faint, he said, but someone's scanning for us. Or scanning for the child. Mara looked at him, concern etched across her face. Do you think it's dangerous? Ryland shook his head slowly. I don't know. But whoever it is, they'll be coming. And when they do, we need to be ready. The child seemed to sense his worry, pressing its hand into his and leaning against him. Ryland felt a surge of determination. He had promised to protect this child, and he would keep that promise, no matter the cost. As the days passed, the horizon sailed through the star fields, the child exploring, learning, and growing closer to Ryland. The bond they shared became stronger than words could express, a silent pact of trust and protection. And though the crew could sense that something was coming, a force, a presence beyond their understanding, they also sensed that this bond might be humanity's greatest strength. In the quiet moments of the ship, Ryland would sit beside the child, staring at the stars and wondering about the vast galaxy beyond. He did not know where this journey would lead, but he knew one thing for certain. He would shield this child from harm, even if it meant standing against the entire universe. And somewhere far across the stars, the first faint stirrings of awareness from the child's true lineage were beginning. They had noticed the child's disappearance, and soon the galaxy would learn that a small being, protected by a human, could change everything. For now, though it was just Ryland and the child, bound by trust, curiosity, and an unspoken understanding that together, they could face whatever the universe sent their way. The alien emissaries had stopped just beyond the range of the horizon's sensors. Their presence was intimidating, sleek metallic ships that shimmered in the starlight. But they did not attack. Instead, they deployed smaller craft that moved close to the ship, sending signals and challenges. Captain Ryland stood on the bridge, arms crossed. The child sat nearby, quietly observing. Its large eyes tracked every movement of the alien vessels. Ryland felt a mix of concern and pride. The child was learning quickly, responding instinctively to situations that even trained humans struggled to handle. We can't fight them directly, Mara said, studying the readings. Their weapons are far more advanced. But maybe they're testing us, Ryland nodded. Then we show them what humanity can do without starting a war. He turned to the child, kneeling beside it. You've been brave so far. Are you ready for more? The child responded with a small nod, its eyes steady and calm. Ryland felt a surge of determination. Whatever these tests were, he would face them alongside the child. The first trial came in the form of a challenge to the ship's navigation. Holographic markers appeared in the display, representing dangerous asteroid fields, energy storms, and gravitational anomalies. The emissaries broadcasted a message: prove your competence. Navigate the obstacles without harming the child. Ryland guided the horizon carefully, but he noticed the child pointing toward safe paths before his instruments had identified them. Its gestures were precise, confident, and correct. Mara whispered in awe. It's predicting the safest course. The trial continued for hours. Each obstacle was more complex than the last. Asteroids moved unpredictably, energy currents shifted, and gravitational pulls threatened to pull the ship off course. But the child's instincts, combined with Ryland's experience, allowed them to navigate each challenge flawlessly. You see, Mara, Ryland said quietly, it's not just instinct. It's strategy. It understands patterns. It understands consequences. The next trial tested more than intellect, it tested moral judgment. A simulated scenario appeared in the display. Multiple ships were in danger, some human, some alien. One decision could save one group but put another at risk. The message from the emissaries was clear. Show your values. Show loyalty and honor. Ryland looked down at the child. Its large eyes reflected the simulation. He realized it understood the dilemma, sensing the ethical tension in the scenario. Together, they made a choice that prioritized the innocent and minimized harm. The emissaries observed in silence. Their small craft shimmered, scanning every movement, every decision. Then they issued a new trial, a test of courage. A massive energy storm was projected on the display, threatening to engulf the horizon. Ryland knew this was a test of risk management, but it also required trust. The child stepped forward, raising its small hand, creating subtle energy pulses that stabilized the storm's effects. The crew gasped. The child's power was real, yet controlled. You did it, Ryland whispered. You saved us all. The storm cleared and the final challenge appeared, a moral test of loyalty. The emissaries simulated a scenario in which Rylan could secure his own safety by surrendering the child. No harm would come to him, but the child would be taken. Rylan looked down at the child, who looked back at him with complete trust. His answer was instinctive. "I will not give you up," he said firmly. "I will protect you no matter the cost." The emissaries paused. Then a voice came, calm and approving. "You have shown loyalty, courage, and wisdom. The child is under your protection for now. But know this, the path ahead will test you further. Prepare for greater challenges." Rylan exhaled slowly, relief and tension mixing in his chest. The trials had not only tested his abilities, they had confirmed his bond with the child. Whatever the galaxy sent next, he knew they could face it together. The child looked up at him, small hands gripping his sleeve. Rylan smiled. "We'll face it all together, always." The horizon drifted quietly through the endless black of space, stars glimmering like scattered diamonds. Captain Rylan stood at the observation window, his hands resting lightly on the railing. The alien child sat nearby, staring at the glowing nebulae outside, fascinated by the colors and movements. Though peaceful for now, Rylan knew the calm would not last. Somewhere far away in the heart of the mighty alien empire, Queen Zareth felt it first, a subtle disturbance in the energy currents of the galaxy. She paused in her council chamber, her elongated fingers hovering above a holographic map. The child had been found, not by her forces, but by a human. "Impossible," she murmured, her voice calm yet commanding. Her attendants fell silent, waiting for her command. "The child? It cannot be in human hands." Not yet. Zareth was unlike most rulers, wise, intelligent, and aware of the delicate balance of the galaxy. She had ruled for centuries, yet even she felt a flicker of urgency. The child was a descendant of her line, a being of rare ability and intelligence, thought lost generations ago. The child held the potential to change the course of her empire. And now a human, fragile, unpredictable, and emotional, had claimed the child. "Prepare the emissaries," she said, her eyes sharp and unwavering. "The human must understand that this child belongs to the Empire. No force, no trick, no hesitation. Bring the child to me." Back aboard the horizon, Rylan sensed a shift in the air. Something subtle, something he could not fully detect with instruments. The child stirred, looking toward the forward sensors. Its large eyes narrowed, and it made a low, soft sound that Rylan instinctively understood as alertness. "I know," Rylan whispered to the child. "I feel it too. They're coming for you. But we'll be ready." The sensors soon confirmed his suspicion. Multiple fast-moving vessels were approaching. Unlike the clumsy human ships he had seen before, these vessels were sleek, precise, and far advanced. Their energy signatures pulsed in a rhythm almost alive. Mara tapped the console rapidly. "Captain, they're not hostile yet, but they're scanning us. I think they're looking for the child." Rylan's jaw tightened. "Keep shields up, evasive systems ready. But don't provoke them. Let's see what they want first." As the alien vessels approached, the child's body stiffened, responding instinctively to the presence of its own kind. It stepped closer to Rylan, small hands gripping his sleeve. There was trust in that gesture, trust that he would protect it no matter what. Rylan nodded silently, feeling a surge of responsibility heavier than anything he had carried before. Then the communication channel opened. A smooth melodic voice echoed through the ship, calm yet commanding. "Captain Rylan," it said, "we are emissaries of Queen Zareth. We come for the child you have taken. Surrender it peacefully, and no harm will come to you or your crew." Rylan stood tall, his fingers tightening around the railing. "I cannot do that," he replied steadily. "The child is under my protection. Until I know it is safe, it will stay with me." There was a brief pause. The voice returned, measured and precise. "You do not understand the importance of this child. It is of royal blood, a descendant of our line. Its abilities are not mere chance, they are the future of the Empire. Interference is not permitted." Rylan's mind raced. He had encountered alien species before, but none had claimed such a personal connection to a single being. "I understand that," he said carefully. "But this child is young, vulnerable, and not yet ready for the responsibilities you speak of. I will not send it into danger. I will protect it." The emissaries seemed to hesitate. Rylan noticed subtle movements on the sensors. The alien ships were not attacking, only observing, calculating. They were measuring him, testing his resolve. "You underestimate the consequences," the voice said finally. "The child's destiny cannot be delayed. Surrender it, or face the results of defiance." Rylan looked down at the child. Its large eyes were calm but curious, as if it understood the conversation in ways humans could not. It pressed gently against his leg, a silent plea. He bent down slightly. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I've got you." The next few hours were tense. Rylan and his crew prepared defensive measures while keeping communications open. They were outnumbered technologically, but the Horizon had its advantages: agility, cunning, and human ingenuity. More than that, they had Rylan's determination and the child's growing awareness. Mara watched the child closely. "Captain," she said, "it's responding to the alien presence. It senses. It can detect more than our instruments. It knows they're here, and it's preparing in its own way." Rylan nodded. "Then we'll work with it, not against it. Whatever happens, we protect it first." That night, as the child slept in its cot, Rylan kept watch. He thought of the ruins on Lirith 9, of the predators that had tried to harm the child, and of the moments that had built their bond. Every choice he made now would carry weight, and failure was not an option. Far across the galaxy, Queen Zareth observed the situation through her advanced sensors. The child's signals were strong, stronger than expected. She leaned forward, her gaze sharp. "So the human values the child over reason," she said softly. "Interesting." Her advisors murmured among themselves, warning her that humans were unpredictable. But Zareth only smiled slightly. She admired courage, even when it opposed her own goals. This human had taken responsibility for the child out of compassion, a quality rare and valuable in the galaxy. "Prepare the ships for cautious approach," she commanded. "We will not harm the human, yet, but the child must return to its rightful place. Observe, understand, and if necessary, persuade." Back aboard the Horizon, Rylan studied the alien vessels as they held position at a safe distance. "They're waiting," he said. "Watching, learning, they'll try something eventually." The child stirred again, lifting its head and looking at him. It made a small sound, almost like a question. Rylan knelt beside it. "I know you're scared," he whispered. "But whatever comes, we face it together." Over the next few days, the child's abilities became more noticeable. It could sense subtle energy fluctuations, predict minor course changes, and even anticipate the alien ship's movements before they acted. The crew began to realize that the child was not merely intelligent, it was extraordinary. Mara recorded every detail. "Captain, its awareness is beyond anything we've studied. It's like it can feel intentions, predict actions. This isn't just instinct, it's something more." Rylan nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and concern. "Then we have to be careful. The more they see of its abilities, the more dangerous it becomes if it falls into the wrong hands." Despite the tension, moments of peace still came. The child explored the ship, learning quickly, mimicking gestures and even experimenting with simple tools. It was growing more confident, more aware, and more attached to Rylan. Their bond was deepening, creating a connection that neither time nor distance could break. And yet, the presence of Queen Zareth's emissaries loomed over them like a shadow. Every signal, every movement reminded Rylan that the universe was watching. The child was no longer just an alien being. They were a symbol, a key to power, and a link between species that could change the course of the galaxy. Rylan spent hours at the observation window, the child sitting quietly beside him. "I don't know what's coming next," he said softly, "but I do know this: you're not alone. I'll protect you, always." The child leaned against him, making a small, comforting sound. Rylan smiled faintly, feeling the weight of responsibility, but also the strength of the bond they shared. He knew that no matter the challenge, no matter the force approaching, they would face it together. And somewhere, far across the galaxy, Queen Zareth watched with growing interest. The human's bravery and the child's courage were unusual, rare even. She realized that the outcome of this encounter would depend not just on technology or power, but on the choices of individuals, choices that could shape the future of both humans and aliens alike. For now, though, the standoff continued. The Horizon sailed on, carrying its precious cargo, the child's trust and the hope that compassion, courage, and determination could stand against even the mightiest forces in the galaxy. After the trials, Rylan knew that the danger was far from over. The alien emissaries had retreated but left an unmistakable message. They were watching. More importantly, they were aware of the child's abilities. The child, meanwhile, had grown more confident. Its gestures were precise, its understanding of the ship's systems uncanny, and its instincts sharper than ever. Mara recorded its movements with fascination. Captain, these abilities, they're not just natural, they're extraordinary. I've never seen a life form with such awareness and control. Rylan nodded. He had suspected this, but seeing it in practice was astonishing. The child could anticipate mechanical malfunctions, stabilize systems, and even manipulate minor energy flows. It was not simply intelligent, it was powerful in ways humans could not fully comprehend. One afternoon, as the horizon passed near a small star cluster, the child approached the control panel and placed its hands on the sensors. Small pulses of energy ran through the ship, stabilizing minor fluctuations and improving efficiency. Rylan watched in amazement. "You're incredible," he said softly. The child responded with a subtle gesture, pointing toward the stars beyond, then to itself. Rylan understood. It wanted to explore, to grow, to understand its own abilities. And he knew he had a choice. Continue shielding the child or begin preparing it for the responsibilities its lineage demanded. Late that evening, Mara approached Rylan with the latest data. "Captain, I think I've discovered something. The child's abilities are linked to its heritage. Its energy manipulation, its predictive instincts. These are traits of its royal line." Rylan's eyes widened. "So the Queen's interest isn't just political. It's genetic. The child was born with these abilities." Mara nodded. "Yes, and that explains why the emissaries are so insistent. They're not just reclaiming an heir. They're retrieving someone who could lead the Empire into a new era." Rylan sat down heavily. Protecting the child had always been about compassion, but now it carried far greater implications. The child's powers were not just extraordinary, they were a key to the future of an entire civilization. The child approached, sensing his concern. It reached out, resting its small hand on his arm. Rylan felt a strange warmth, a connection deeper than mere duty. He realized that the child was not only dependent on him, it trusted him completely to guide and protect it. Over the next few days, Rylan and the child began to train together. Not formal lessons, but exercises in understanding and control. The child learned to focus its abilities, stabilizing the ship's systems and anticipating movements with increasing precision. Rylan marveled at its progress. "You're learning fast," he said one evening, watching the child manipulate the energy flows around the control panel. "Soon you'll be able to handle much more than this ship. But remember, power is not just about ability, it's about choice." The child looked up, large eyes reflecting understanding beyond its years. It was beginning to grasp not only its powers but the responsibility that came with them. But the threat remained. The emissaries were still out there, observing, waiting for an opportunity. Rylan knew that the Queen herself would take notice soon, and when she did, the stakes would rise higher than ever. One night, as the child slept, Rylan stood at the observation window, staring at the stars. He thought of the ruins on Lirith 9, of the predators, of the bond that had formed between them. Protecting the child had become his purpose, but it was more than protection. It was guidance, mentorship, and friendship. Mara joined him silently, watching the stars. "Captain," she said softly, "you realize that the child is more than a passenger." "It's something remarkable. Whatever comes next, we're witnessing history." Rylan nodded. "I know, and I'll do everything I can to keep it safe. But more than that, I'll help it become what it's meant to be, whatever that means for the galaxy." The child stirred, sensing his determination. Rylan placed a hand gently on its small shoulder, a silent promise. They would face whatever challenges awaited together, with courage, loyalty, and trust. Somewhere across the galaxy, Queen Zareth studied the signals from the child. She smiled faintly. The human was protective, yes, but also wise, and that made the child's future even more intriguing. The choices of individuals, human and alien alike, would shape what was to come. For now, the horizon sailed on, carrying its precious charge. The child was learning, growing, and preparing for a destiny far greater than anyone could yet imagine, and Rylan, the human who had chosen to shield it, would be by its side through every challenge, every test, and every moment that lay ahead.